Hi everyone, I'm Shruti. I'm a Y22 from the MTH department. I'm going to be going for a master's in finance at Princeton University. It's a 2-year program with an optional master's project or thesis.
Hello, I'm Sahil. I'm also from MTH. I will be doing a master's in pure maths at Cambridge. It's a 1-year program with the essay instead of a thesis.
Hi, I'm Zehan. I am a fourth year SDS student. I will be going for my PhD in statistics at Duke. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Animesh. I'm a Y22 CS from the CSE batch, and I will be going for masters at Stanford in CS. It's a 2-year program.
Hello. Hello everyone, I am Rashi Sharma. I am a BS Physics student and I'll be going for an MS in Physics, specifically quantum technology. I haven't decided which university I'll be going to yet, so I'm in the process of deciding right now.
Hello everyone, I am Shreya Rajak. I am a dual degree student in aerospace department. I am a Y21 and I'll be going for PhD in aerospace, specifically in fluid mechanics in Cambridge. It's a 3 to 4 years program.
So before beginning with the presentation, the first thing we'll be covering is why should anyone consider further education and whether it's meant for you.
So initially, like when people come to IIT, they don't, so they either think of if they get the branch that they want to pursue, they would always try to aspire for, like they would have a dream ki isme, like you explore your branch. If you like your branch, if you do some projects, then if you get interested in that, you would always think ki theek hai, we'll go for higher studies. You'll be in a stage where you'll be confused ki if you should pursue higher studies or not, if you should go for high-paying jobs that are coming for placements. So that becomes a very major dilemma for every one of us on campus. So for me personally, that broke off when I did my intern in my second year. So in my third year, I went for my internship and I realized that corporate is something that does not go in line with like something that I want to pursue for a long time. And when I started my research on college, like my thesis research on college way before I planned to do dual degree. So I started in second year end only. So I enjoyed my research work quite a lot, like doing that, because I kind of felt that I own the work that I'm doing there. So that gave me a sense of satisfaction, you can say. And so it was like something that I would want to pursue for a long time. I would be like, it would be something ki I am doing a work of mine and that I'm trying to pursue for a long time, which I felt that in corporate, you don't have anything as your own that you're doing. So that was my deciding factor to pursue for higher studies. So before like becoming like very sure about PhD, I converted my degree to a dual degree here. And after that, it actually gave me like more reasons to pursue PhD further on. So yeah, that was my reason to go for it.
So I think for a lot of people, so a lot of people are very sure that they want to go into the corporate world, in which case it's very clear what you want to do. And then there are a lot of people who want to go into academia, in which case also it's very clear that you should pursue a PhD further. I think I'll try to help the people who are confused regarding regarding whether they want to go into academia or the corporate world, or if they are not sure if they want to pursue higher studies. So for me personally, I always knew that I was interested in physics. I wasn't very sure if I wanted to do a PhD. And then in my 6th semester, I decided to go for a research internship. And after that research internship, I decided that I definitely want to pursue higher education, but not a PhD at the moment because I would like to go into the industry. And that's why I applied solely for master's programs. So one of the main reasons why I applied for masters at all was because in the field that I'm interested in, there aren't really any R&D jobs right after graduation. So if you feel like you're interested in industry R&D, then going for a master's would be a good idea. Going for a PhD can also be a very helpful step in this case, but then that depends on whether you feel like you're ready for it or if the field requires a PhD or not.
So we have our last speaker with us. So first, introduce. And then...
Hi, I'm Varun. I'm Y11. I was here from 2011 to 2015. I did my bachelor's here, BS in physics. Then I did my PhD at Stanford, also in physics. And then I was a postdoctoral researcher at the Max Planck Institute in Stuttgart. Then I was a group leader there, and now I'm joining TIFR as a faculty in a week. So yeah, that's me, and would be happy to connect and answer any questions and also guide you through this process. One other thing that I would like to point out, I was involved at Stanford for 4 years with the GSAP, which is the Graduate Students of Applied Physics and Physics, which takes care of the student side of the admissions process. So I've seen kind of what goes on from the other side too, so I would be able to answer some of the questions, misconceptions, and other things that might happen. So yeah, that's me. Yeah. Sorry I was late. I was in a meeting and I'm pitching in kind of very late. One of the things that I kind of suggested right at the start and which was added to the presentation was before you even apply, before you even think of doing higher studies, take a step back, slow down, and think why you really want to do it. I've seen many success stories, but I've seen as many failure stories. So do not think that higher studies is a key to anything. Do take a step back and think hard why you want to do studies after your bachelor's. It is not a sure shot key to anything. And it is a very expensive process, both emotionally, physically, and economically. So do think very hard. Just take a day, be patient before you start doing anything or taking any step. So this is my advice, which is don't do it just because it's there, your wingies are doing it, or your roommate is doing it. Try and think hard of why you want to do it. And that's my first advice before you get into this journey of applying for higher studies, master's, PhD, whichever. So it's going to cost a lot in terms of time, effort, money, everything. So do be sure of what your goals are, of why you want to do it. All right?
Okay, so I'll talk about why I applied. During my third year internship, before my third year internship, I was pretty, I was I was en route to do my internship and then set for placements and get a good job here. But during my internship, I realized that I didn't really want to commit myself, especially to the roles that are offered here, even through the placement cell. And I wanted to explore more AI research. So there aren't many opportunities available here. That's why in my seventh semester, at the start of my seventh semester, I decided that I would apply for master's programs. Why not PhD? Because I did not want to commit myself to a PhD program because it's quite long, and moreover, I felt my profile at that point wasn't strong enough to get into good PhD programs. And so, I thought I would go for a master's and then Eventually, if I want to do a PhD, then I would apply.
I think the reason why a lot of us finally decided to apply for any of the higher study programs is going to be roughly the same across the board, which is we went for our interns to figure out that, yeah, this is not it. But the larger part of that answer as to why I applied for a PhD is mostly because this is the only thing that I've ever done that has given me any sort of fulfillment. From a very personal sense, if I'm able to formulate a very specific problem in the world and then solve it by, either developing a new method or developing some new theory or something around a particular niche problem solution, that is something that gives me immense amount of fulfillment and kind of tells me that I have fulfilled some sense of purpose of just being here. I think that's not something that I've ever gotten out of corporate, or I realize that I will never get that out of my job in any of the starting off positions that I had. So I knew that I wanted to commit to my passion of just solving new problems and properly dedicating my time to research, which is why I applied for a PhD.
So why I applied for a master's? Okay, so first of all, initially I wanted to apply for a PhD also, but so I did a second year reading project, so not too deep, but I enjoyed it so well that I didn't even sit for the third year internship season, and then did another research intern. But instead of applying for PhD, I thought it's better to spend 1 or 2 more years to do more pure maths, since I felt in pure maths studying various subfields will help me more to it's the nature of pure maths, everything is connected, so studying more about everything will help me in whatever niche I finally decide to go in. So then I decided to apply for master's instead of a PhD.
Okay, so my story is a bit different. So till my second or third year, I was sure that I wanted to go into research. And I had heard a lot of stories of seniors who did an internship and then decided that's not for them, and then went to pursue a PhD and got into research like that. So I thought that that would be my story. But when I went for the internship, on the contrary, I enjoyed it. And that's when I decided that I didn't want to do a PhD and didn't necessarily want to go into research. So then I was sure that I wanted to go into finance. And then why masters? Because 2 things. One is I'm more from a pure math background and most of my profile is pure math. So I haven't really done coursework or projects or anything on finance side. And during my internship also, and if I joined now also, most of my learning would be on the job. And I was not, I felt like that would not work out too well for me. And I talked to a lot of people in the company as well, and a lot of them recommended financial engineering and mathematical finance programs for masters. So that's what got me looking into it. And so that is one reason, because I wanted to bridge out from maths and go more into the mathematical finance side. And the second is, in the long term, I wanted to be working abroad, and I felt that directly joining a company here, it would take me at least 4 or 5 years to do that switch. So a master's is one pathway to help me get a job directly abroad.
I guess we should start getting more specific. And we heard of all of your stories; they were very fascinating. But from the standpoint of a student, I think each of us who are at least sure that they want to apply are thinking of the second question. When should one start thinking about it, and when should people start applying? Okay, we will have students from different years here. So, did any of you start preparing for it way before, or did you all start preparing for it in 7th semester itself? How did you go about the applications? Would you like to answer, Shruti?
So I basically started the process in September or October. That's when I finalized the colleges that I wanted to apply to, and started writing my SOP and giving the tests like GRE and TOEFL and all of that. And from then till the process continued, like my applications were mostly in December and Jan, and I had interviews through Jan and Feb. So the process continued till February or March.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I think we should give a brief intro to how the process is like, and like what are the different steps, what are the different materials you need to submit. So, would any of you want to give us a brief intro to like you mentioned SOPs. You would also need LORs. You also mentioned interviews. So our interviews are norm. We had this question in our form, Google form as well. Our interviews are a standard part of the process, or do these happen in very specific uh, places, or how many LORs do you require in standard? How do you write a SOP? Let's start touching on those subjects. Does anyone else want to take that question?
So I can answer. What you would need specifically to apply for grad school is you need official transcripts. That's a given. You need to know when you're graduating, and your institute degree needs to show that. That's again obvious. Then you need a statement of purpose, and in many cases you also need a diversity statement. Diversity statement, and this is specifically to the US, the diversity statement has been done away with because of the Trump organization in recent days. Still, places in California still need it. Your statement of purpose would be why you want to study further, which is why the first question, taking a breather, really realizing why you want to do it, is also important. The diversity statement is what would you bring to the table, which is going to be different, which is going to add to the whole experience of being on that campus. So these are the two things that you would need. This would require about a month to think about, to write convincingly, and to write a statement which makes sense. You would see a lot of statement of purposes which just start with, I've been wanting to do this since I was a kid. Yes, everyone has been wanting to do this since they were a kid. You read that 500 times and you immediately skip over, you gloss. Anything else that's written there is irrelevant. You've lost the person who's trying to read your statement of purpose by just starting with a generic statement like, I've been wanting to do this since I was a kid. Don't start with that. Start with a very actionable item, something which draws the person to actually read the statement of purpose. Anyone who's sitting on the other side of the table has about 2 to 3 minutes to go through it. If you don't, well, everyone watches reels, right? If the hook is not there in the first 2 seconds, you just scroll up. This is exactly what's happening with all the statement of purposes. You get 5,000 statement of purposes. No one's going to read through them, especially not professors who actually hate the process. So they're not going to do it, so you have to make a hook. Make that hook stick. That's the first thing. And if you want to make the hook stick, spend about a month thinking about what you want to write in the statement of purpose. So that will be the first thing. Then you need letters of recommendation. Start that sort of at the start of the semester when you're going to apply. So at the start of 7th semester, I mean, of course, this will depend on how close you are to people, whether you're still taking their classes, et cetera, but professors would also like to have time to write a letter of recommendation. So give them ample time. Tell them that you're going to apply and you would require a letter of recommendation to do it. Second, don't choose a professor depending on what your perception of the professor is, that, oh, they're going to write a nice letter of recommendation. If you have taken one class with them, which is a 3-credit or a 7-credit course, it doesn't matter. when you match the letter of recommendation to the coursework, that recommendation is not going to count. So choose your recommenders properly, and this is again going to take some time. So approach the people who you want to write your letter of recommendations at the start of the semester when you're going to need them. That's another thing. I am not up to date about whether all applications need GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, etc., because that whole process has gone through some turmoil. If you need it, start looking at it in semester 6 so that you can schedule everything in advance, and don't leave anything till the 13th night. That's not going to work. It's only going to give you more stress. It's just like any other process. All the documents are written very clearly in a checklist on the sites of colleges that you're going to apply to. So don't get stressed if someone else needed something else. If it's not on the checklist, it's not required. That's it. So check the checklist. Check which colleges you want to apply to. I think we'll come to how to choose the colleges later. But if you have decided your list, go to the college website, see what they require, and get started on doing that at the start of semester 7. I think that covers the documents part, right? Yeah.
Hello. Right. So, okay. So I just wanted to talk about, similar things like what Mr. Varun said. So one thing is that, so I applied to programs across US and Europe, and I observed that a lot of tailoring of your statement of purpose is going to be required. So you can't just write one statement of purpose and hope that it's going to fit every single application, because a lot of universities, so lots of times they show prompts. Like they'll ask you some questions, there are 5-6 questions, and they want you to answer those specific questions in your statement of purpose. Lots of times, and this is again more prevalent in the US if you're applying over there. So none of the places I applied to had a diversity statement. So I had to write an academic statement of purpose, and some places also had a personal statement of purpose, and some places just had one combined statement. So that's regarding the statement. And so I applied to research-based master's programs, and one thing I would recommend is that, so I think a lot of people hear that it's a good idea to mention professors whose research you're interested in. I agree with that, definitely. But if you're applying to a master's program, you have to understand that it's not just a research-based program, and it would be a good idea to also go through the, obviously you should be going through the curriculum if you're deciding on a program, but pick out the most interesting courses and write a few lines about why you would want to do those courses and how they align with your previous coursework or research work. So I think that definitely adds to your application. And then obviously you want to include a few lines about the professors you would be interested in working under in your program. So for me personally, I kept it to 2 to 3 professors for every application. And again, that will depend on your word limit. A lot of places have SOPs with a word limit of 300, 500, and then there are some places which have a word limit of 1,000. So a lot of tailoring of the application is required.
Okay, there was a point of the tests required for the application. So I think since you guys have applied recently, you would be a little more updated on the process, like how many tests are required, which ones are mandatory, which ones just give you an edge. So would you guys like to fill us in? Like Zehan, can you answer which ones did you require to fill in?
Sure. So for any applications that you have, you only really need to give 2 tests now. One is TOEFL and one is GRE. GRE, just a small caveat, a good number of places out there will not require you to write GRE general. Most of the places have kind of like stopped accepting scores from GRE just because it doesn't really measure a lot. TOEFL is just like your English proficiency. So for most places that are either unfunded programs, just a TOEFL score of 80 is good enough. no one really cares beyond that. Anything over 100 is like, you're basically a native speaker to them. And if you are applying for certain places, let's say Princeton or Oxford, some select places have specific score requirements in either the speaking part of the test or the writing part of the test. If you are to be given TA positions, if a TA position is a part of your funding, that's the only thing you need to know about TOEFL. And if you are someone who is trying to cut down on, let's say, costs, or just does not want to give GRE in general for whatever reason, you can skip GRE and still have a decent number of places that you're applying to. However, I think none of us would recommend doing that, simply because you are just cutting down on very, very good programs out there. So yeah, and also one question that a lot of you might have, whether you need to give GRE like subject-specific tests. So we have GRE Math, GRE Physics, I think, so stuff like that. Most, I might go so far as to say like almost all college programs that I know of don't really require you to give those tests. And given that all of you will be likely appearing for those tests in India, the slots for the same are not very abundant. So most of you will be able to explain not giving those tests by one of two reasonings. One is just not a lot of slots available, and second is your coursework at IIT Kanpur tests for much, much, much more than whatever GRE is, and you can have one of your LOR writers explain that as well. So you can get away with not giving that test as well. So just GRE General and TOEFL are the two tests that you should be concerning yourself with.
So I just wanted to add something regarding TOEFL and GRE. So a lot of places, so most places you apply to will definitely have an English proficiency requirement. And in some places you can request for a waiver of that, or they will state it clearly that if you have a medium of instruction certificate, that is, if your degree was conducted purely in the English medium, all the courses were taught in English, then you don't have to give TOEFL. So that is something, it's a good idea to look into that, because you're saving costs. It costs to send every test result also to your university. And so for GRE, I just wanted to point out that a lot of programs say that GRE is not accepted and it won't be counted. And in that case, you don't need to send your scores. If you are lucky enough that somehow all the universities you shortlisted say that they won't be accepting GRE, then you don't need to give it. You don't need to take the test. But in case it says that GRE is optional, it is usually recommended to give it. So yeah, there are just two different ways that things are worded, and you should know the difference. So that's all.
Just one more thing with respect to that. So before you give the test for TOEFL, you can actually pick, I think, up to 3 or 5 universities ahead, and that fee is already included in your TOEFL test fee. So you don't have to pay additionally to send those. And for GRE, on the test date, you can give up to 3 universities. So those would automatically get sent. You don't have to pay anything extra. So if you give those tests, you should look out for those as well.
Okay, I think that clears up the test part. We would want the session to be interactive. If any of you guys want any more further clarification regarding to the test, you can just raise your hand and we'll...
Just keep in mind that the tests are TOEFL is valid for I guess 2 years, and GRE I'm not very sure. So TOEFL is valid for 2 years. So if you are taking the test, so if you want, most of the students apply for the fall semester. So it is, if you are aiming for that, so maybe try taking it in early in your 7th semester. Maybe. So for PhD program, GRE in most of the colleges are not compulsory. But as Rashi mentioned, if your college is saying GRE is optional, then it is highly recommended that you give GRE. But for at least PhD, most of the time only TOEFL works. GRE is not that important.
So I just wanted to add that I personally actually did not give the GRE, although some of my applications said that it's optional. And but I just wanted to let you all know that it is recommended to give it. And whether you decide to not give it or whether you decide to give it, that's something that is up to you. But you should be aware that it's recommended regardless. Of course, you can get acceptances without giving GRE as well.
So for non-English countries also, if the medium of instruction in the university is English, then knowing the regional language is not very necessary. They'll want your English course only to see if you can go through their medium of instruction in the university. Yeah.
Are you talking about Europe in particular? Yeah. So in Europe, the admission is sort of supposed to be blind to the language requirements, so they'll never ask you for A1, B2, whatever. However, if it's, and many of the universities are in the middle of nowhere, so it is highly recommended that you know a little of the language. So your instruction, your peer group will all speak English, but as soon as you step out of there, it would be hard for you to live. And people are scarce anyway in Europe, so it's good to have that in the back of your mind. Just because you're not required to learn the language doesn't mean you shouldn't put in a little effort to, yeah, that's.
Okay, I think we've covered all the questions on test. Okay, coming back to apply or not to apply, a major dilemma a person who has made up his mind to pursue research further faces is to go for a master's or a PhD. So what are the differences that there are, and what are the things that he should consider to choose one of these, or should a person apply for both of them simultaneously? How much the process differs? Did any of you apply for both the streams, like both masters and PhDs? So how did you make your mind? Like, what do you want?
Right, so this is something that I was quite confused about, whether to apply for MS or whether to apply for PhD. And I would recommend this in general if you're interested in higher education, that you should go for a research internship. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like projects done during the semester or projects done here at IIT Kanpur don't give you as much exposure as when you are in a different lab and, you spend 10, 11 hours there on the daily, and you get to interact with people who are postdoc students, people who are in their first to fourth, fifth year of PhD. You get to see a day in the life of a professor every day for quite a few days, right? So I feel like that level of exposure is something that's extremely helpful. And so that definitely helped me in deciding between going for a PhD or master's. And I realized that although I might be open to doing a PhD later on, it's not something that I want to commit myself to right now, and that a master's would be right for me. And another thing that I wanted to add is that, so for a lot of people who are also interested in research, it is extremely easy to get carried away in the process of, the SPO internship season or, things like that. So for me, the realization came after I sat through the SPO intern season, after I got an internship, and then sometime after that I realized that this is just not something that I see myself doing at all. So if you are confused between pursuing research or corporate, I would say, give a try to just do something, and then you will get a better idea of what you want to do. But just thinking about it is not going to be helpful. So if you prepare for the corporate intern season and you realize that this is not for you, it might feel like a step back, but at least you gain some clarity, and that definitely helps a lot in the long run.
I just want to add one thing, which is because the point raised here was research as opposed to higher education. Not all higher education is research. A lot of master's programs, you can go and work as a research assistant in a lab, doesn't mean you will have the time to work as a research assistant in a lab. So you have to differentiate between that. A master's is going to be an extension of your coursework in most cases, unless it's a research-based master's. So please look out for programs which offer either a research-based master's, where you have to write a thesis. In most cases, a master's is just going to be an extension of the coursework that you're doing in undergrad without an option of generally having a master's thesis. It could be a one semester thing of one course. It's not going to be enough to fulfill what you might think of as research. So if you really want to do research and are unsure about whether to go for a master's or a PhD, I would say look for specific places which give you research masters. Very few places do, but look for that specifically. Just going for a master's program doesn't mean you'll get to do research. This is a major caveat. So a lot of people then go into master's, and then in the first year they just apply for another PhD program. And that's just going to double the amount of effort that you did. So many people have good enough profiles that they can get into a PhD program. And they really want to do a PhD, but they're not sure about doing a PhD. They apply for a master's, then realize that you're not doing research in master's. And then in the first year, they just end up applying for a PhD program again. So if you want to do research, then look for specific programs which allow you to do an extended master's thesis, because most places don't. So differentiate between higher education and research. And yeah, that's just something that I wanted to add.
I think Sahil mentioned that he was very much interested in research very early on. And I just wanted to ask, why did you then go for a master's instead of a PhD directly?
So for me, the reason for not going for a PhD was, again, like when I was doing all these projects and like mostly reading projects, I realized that doing more coursework in like pure maths will actually help me more in like will obviously help me more like in selecting what topic I will do my PhD in, but will also help me like do better in my topics, like since pure maths everything is so connected, and like you don't really do one field. Like even if you're doing algebra, you might still be requiring number theory analysis. So like having a knowledge of all those subfields will actually help me more. So like in my case, like it really made sense to do a master's.
Okay, any questions about this topic from the audience?
A PhD is basically you doing 1 or 2 years of extended coursework into the general subject that you're interested in, general to an extent where you have figured out that, hey, look, I want to do a PhD in statistics, so I'm going to do loads of coursework in fundamentals of statistics, and it is then going to be supplemented with one very specific research problem that I'm interested in, and that research problem is identified over the course of these 2 years, upon which you do your dissertation. Your dissertation is basically your contribution to the human knowledge or whatever. So something new. So you solving one specific area, right? So if you look at PhD in the framing of the question that you asked, it is basically you learning the fundamentals of one particular field completely, then identifying a problem, and then working in super niche till you get to some area. So the only thing that I feel you need to be very, very sure of before getting into a PhD is that A, you are ready for this time commitment. It is going to be a long journey. You're likely not going to take up research for the first 1.5, 2 years of your life. You are ready to take up this amount of rigor in building fundamentals, and eventually you are sure that you will be able to find some problem statement within this field that you will solve. So that's the overall picture of what a PhD would look like. Hope that helps.
Okay, so I relate very much with the last question. What if you're unsure about your path? What if you're like very much fascinated by higher studies, but you're also a little bit scared about how it might pan on? Would you say that appearing for placement is a good backup idea, or do you think it's a distraction if you're very much into it and very sure that you want to pursue? And how hectic does it get during the placement season when you also have to look after your applications and craft them well? did any of you face this problem?
So I'll answer this. So for me, I sat for placements because I wanted placements as a backup because if so I was unsure if I don't land up with a PhD, I don't want to be in that unsurety after my college gets over. So I sat for placements, and so most of the US applications and some of the Europe applications, their deadlines are they coincide with your placement interviews. They are from 1st December to 15th December. So it is very important for you to plan the entire thing throughout, because you will be having your tests very rigorously from mid-October till November end. So it will be very difficult for you to talk to professors for LORs, to revise your SOPs. So things like the broader things, like you should be aware of what you need for your applications beforehand. So once you have selected your colleges, it is very important for you to just go through the websites and see what are the things that you need. So one of the major thing would be, if you have your SOP ready, then when you have the questions that you have to answer, you can frame your SOPs, you can take time, you can do that. But it is very important that you have your draft of the SOP ready. So that is one thing. Second thing is your LORs. So it is not advisable to first of all ask professors at the last minute, and also you won't be having time to manage college deadlines. Placement interviews will be coming up. So it is recommended that you submit your, so if you are having your deadlines on 1st December, and 1st December is usually your day one of the placements. So for me, so I tried to submit all my applications like 3 or 4 days beforehand, so that I don't mess up at the last moment. Secondly is, don't keep most of the tasks for the month of November. Try to finalize your college-wise requirements, documents that you will be having beforehand. So try to write your answers, try to write your SOPs, or whatever you have to, whatever documents you would need by like your test scores as well. So try to finalize that by October, so that while submitting your applications on November, you just have to go through them and revise them, so that you don't mess up while giving your placements exams as well. So yeah.
Wanted to add.
So I'll share my experience as well. So I also sat for placements to have a backup. But I would recommend, I'm not saying not to sit for placements. If you're doing both, it will get tough. It can get really hard. In my case, I had a few deadlines on 30th November and 1st December, and that coincided with my day one interviews. So yeah, if you decide to sit for placements as well, make sure you have a good enough reason, or if you don't have any other backup and you would like to have some backup, because it can get quite overwhelming if you don't have anything to fall back on. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a PPO to fall back on from BCG had I not gotten a research opportunity. But given the places that I had applied for, I had applied for a couple of safeties in the States itself, which I was reasonably sure of getting into like one of them. Given that I have a PPO as a backup, so I did not consider applying to any Indian places. So again, this question is not about like the location of where you're applying, especially when PhDs are concerned. I think the only thing that matters is the department that you're applying to. So let's say if I wanted to do my PhD specifically in an inference-related topic, I would not think twice before applying to IIT Kanpur Stats, because it is like one of the best places to do any sort of inference-related research or any causal inference research. I would not think twice before applying here. But simply because I work in fields in optimization and such, I would want to apply to other places. So if your field of interest is specifically good happening here, then you should apply here. The only places where Indian institutes ever fall back on is like just the size of the departments. Simply because here the endowments are not as high. The sizes of the departments are slightly smaller, so the niches are like less in number, but that's really the only difference. So like if you find your niche here, apply here. If you find your niche there, apply there. Which is why I only applied to states, because the places there have the sort of stuff going on that I want to do.
I can give you a personal example, which is from our physics batch, there were 20 people. Um, 8 of them, 8 of us went outside for PhDs, and one guy stayed here because he already had schools, but he thought he could do better. But then the things didn't work out. So you really, things didn't work out with in terms of, oh, he thought he would get a really nice paper in a really nice journal. The results didn't show up, etc., etc., and then he ended up going to a worse group next year. So again, if you have something on the line which is going to be a really nice paper, and it's your work. Like, first of all, this is another thing which I'm going to say, which might sound harsh, but undergrad research is not, you don't own that research. It's not your project. It's not you who are guiding what's going to happen. It's you being tagged on to a postdoc or a PhD student who's doing that research, who defined that problem, right? So it's not, you don't own that research problem. So specifically for PhD, that part of undergraduate research is going to be looked down as a bonus, unless you have a first author or a single author that really showed that you owned that project. If you're a third author in a paper which even is in Nature, it doesn't matter. So that's one of the things. What are your goals of staying that extra year? One could be improving your CPI. And that's a very valid reason to stay. If you think you can get 2 semesters where you're hitting more than 9s, do stay. If you're already sitting close to 9, and those 2 extra semesters are not going to give you any benefit in terms of whether you'll be able to do a project, whether you'll be able to improve your CPI, then just apply. So that's one of the major caveats. When you're an undergrad and you're doing research, that seems like the most interesting thing to do. But when you go to the other side, when you cross that bridge, you get to see that you, throughout the process, you were tagging along to people who were doing research, and that you were actually being guided a lot. And this is how any undergraduate research is perceived when an application is looked at. So you have to have very concrete reasons to stay that extra year. One of them could be improving your CPI or doing some of the courses that IIT Kanpur is famous for, and really showing that you're worth that extra time. So that's my take on what you should do with regards to dual degree.
I'll add on to my reasons why I did a dual degree. So after my BTech, I felt that maybe my profile is not very strong for a PhD right now, and I have not did like good research work itself, because mostly in your undergrad you do your UGP only for your, like, UGP would be a major part where you are exposed to research a bit, but apart from that, most of the people, they don't go for research interns by default, right? So by compulsion, you're getting you're doing a bit of research during UGP, but that doesn't give you enough experience. And also for me, I felt that masters was economically not suitable for me that time, just after my BTech. So that was a major reason to convert to a dual degree. And I was very sure that I will be pursuing research. So it was also like I was able to do my masters in 1 year, so that also helped on. And in 1 year, I'm getting enough. I'm getting good as in compared to BTech. I'm getting good exposure about research here on campus, and it is important that you be sure that what field you are. So I'm getting to like have a small experience of the fields that I will be working on during my PhD. So during my masters, during my MTech program for 1 year, so I got an idea of how actually working. So before committing for 3 to 4 years, I got an idea of how actually working on that field will be. So it was really helpful for me, like staying on campus for 1 more year, and it helped me in like strengthening my research profile itself through conferences and papers. So yeah, that was my personal reason to pursue dual degree.
One last thing that I forgot to add is do a dual degree if you think you need that breathing space. That could be another very valid reason. Just if you're unsure you need that breathing space, stay. This is a great place to be in. You have a fantastic environment, a very supportive environment. If you think that 1 year extra is going to give you breathing space, that 1 year extra doesn't account for anything in an 80-year span life. So if you need to slow down, take a deep breath, stay.
So PhDs mostly, so in US mostly the PhDs are funded. In Europe, there are like different funding organizations that fund your PhDs. So if you're getting a PhD offer from US, you will be almost sure that you will get your funding. But in Europe, like college acceptance, like in most of the colleges. So I'll speak about Cambridge here. So for Cambridge, the college acceptance and the funding results, they were two separate different bodies. So, yeah.
So I'll add one thing to it. Your offer letter for your PhD, whenever you apply, will say your PhD is completely funded. Where that money is coming from is completely going to depend on the funding situation of the group that you end up in. So your professor in the middle of second semester or second year can say, I ran out of funding, go TA every other semester. So that is another very possible, you have entered the PhD program, you're guaranteed funding. Where that funding comes from, whether you're an RA or a TA, depends completely on the funding situation of the group that you will end up joining. So that's another thing. So that's why it's also better to talk to professors if they reply. Most of the times they don't. But if you can, do reach out to a person if you want to do a PhD, if they have funding for that particular program.
So about profile, I meant as in research profile, as in by the end of your BTech, you generally haven't attended. So for me, profile here meant I did not attend any conferences, I did not have any paper, and I did not do enough like long time of research in my field. So so by the end of my dual degree, now I know that for 1 year I did some research on a particular topic for a year, and I'm experienced on that. Before your MTech program, during BTech, generally you don't work on a particular problem statement for a long time. It is just a coursework or a small period of UGP. So you don't have that much of experience there. So having that experience actually make your profile stronger, as in the person who is seeing your research, seeing your application would know that you have spent a good amount of time and dedication to solving a particular question in a field that you are working on. So it is more about like it is less about what. So your field that you are working on is important, but also how you have worked on that, how much dedication, how much time you have given to that. That is also something a professor would like to know before taking you as a student, right? So that thing also add-ons to your profile and makes it stronger. And about ups and downs about 5th year, so about the pros that I would say is, yeah, you get a breathing space, you get some time to actually understand what you want to do, because till 4th year you are kind of in a rat race kind of, because all your batchmates are there, they'll be following a particular, like most of them will be doing their internships, getting PPOs or going for placements, and you will have this question that why you are not also doing the same if that is a safe option. Because going to a new field, doing something else differently, that actually needs a type of courage. So that thing is, and actually needs a bit of surety that you actually want to do it. That's why you are spending so much your time and effort to something like that. So you would need a particular like space to think about it and be sure that you actually want to pursue whatever you are going to pursue for the next few years. And about the cons, it is like, yeah, in campus, you don't have your batchmates, you don't have your major support system. So I was lucky that I had some of my wingies with me on campus, but if that support system is not there, then it becomes a bit of difficult, then it becomes difficult, as in you will feel that you are doing all of it, so you will feel like whatever problems you are facing, you are alone in that, so that kind of becomes a problem. But then you have to be sure that, so whenever you have people around you doing similar things, then you get a relief ki haan, main bhi kar raha hu, my friends are also doing it, so you guys are facing the same thing. So that is one of the things that mostly fifth year people go through, that they have to, whatever challenges they are coming with, so they have to face those challenges a bit like with less number of people that they're having in the support system. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sorry? Downsides regarding to applications. I don't feel there is any difference. From my point of view, it actually strengthens your application because you have research that you have done beforehand. But I don't think there is any major downsides to the application.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was saying. Going for a master. So, again, this is very blunt. Master's programs in the US are a cash cow for the university. There's no two ways about it. The acceptance rates of masters are the highest between undergrads and PhDs. And that's literally because those are the people who it's a professional degree, but the university knows that people want to take that professional degree because they'll get jobs. And it's a literal cash cow for the universities, which also means that the number of scholarships, the number of full scholarships that are given out for masters is the lowest in US. I'm talking specifically about the US. So that's something that you have to take into account, and that's exactly what I was alluding to right at the start, that these 2 years that you're going to spend is going to be a major financial commitment. So it's not a time commitment, it's a major financial commitment. And given the job market right now, you might not be able to pay that loan right away, which used to be the case 10, 15 years ago. Specifically for computer science, this might not be a problem right now. For EE, this might not be a problem right now, but for departments such as mechanical engineering, where would you go? The auto industry is failing, which used to be the major employer for all the mechanical engineers. So this is something that you need to consider given the time at which you're applying. It's going to be a major financial commitment. So do think about it, and it's not going to pay itself.
Yes, so I just wanted to add that while it's definitely a lot more difficult to secure funding if you're applying for master's programs, it's not impossible, and you should definitely, like, if you are actually interested in, if you have a reason for pursuing masters instead of doing a PhD, then you should definitely look into funding opportunities. And I say this regarding the department or university itself. For example, I was offered a scholarship for 50% of the tuition in a US university. So it's not something that's impossible, and you should definitely look into it. And then other than that, you can also look at external scholarships. So yeah.
At least for a PhD, I can very confidently say that no matter what undergraduate role you take up after IITK, you're not going to get any benefit. As far as your applications are concerned, I can't imagine a research role that would help you. One problem that a lot of us consider is just your inertia will increase a lot, which is to say that if you have been working in a stable job for a while, you have money coming in, and you just have career growth aspects kind of just being filled in your mind because you've been in that environment for a while, you wouldn't want to leave all of that and then go for a long academic commitment. As far as masters are concerned, I think other people would be far better able to answer that, but I genuinely doubt if going for a job helps in.
Also, one of the major challenges is like if you're doing a job for 3-4 years and you're coming back to your professors in college and you want them to write an SOR. So at that time, even they won't remember about the work that you did with them. Like they would, but so when you are on college and you're working with the professors, that time when they're writing the SOR, it is the most strongest at that point of time. After 3 or 4 years, you come back to the professors and you want them to write SORs. That time even it becomes difficult for them to give you a very specific good SORs. So that is also one of the major challenges.
Yeah, just a second. I think Shruti should add to it because you would have had a PPU and you had the opportunity to still you chose a master's.
Yeah, so like if you're looking for a more professional degree versus research, then working a few years does help if you're going into a similar field. Like if you're going into finance, then working a few years in a investment bank or a related company definitely helps building your profile. And also in terms of financial security, that is a good option. And with regards to like that is just if you're not if you're not looking for research, then that is definitely a good option. And a lot of people like I've talked to a lot of people who actually got LORs from the company as well, so that also you can do. And there are companies that even help sponsor your masters if you go in the same field. So if that's something you're looking into, then you should consider that.
So we should move to the next segment. We'll take your questions at the end of the session. Okay, so first of all, let's introduce Manvi. She came here after a quiz.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Manvi and I'm in my final year here in electrical engineering and I've gotten an acceptance at Carnegie Mellon in the Masters of Robotics and System Development.
Yeah, so we covered a lot of these points already, but I think it would be great if any of you could just summarize it. Zihan,
Okay, so a brief overview of the process would likely be you would have your applications for most colleges starting out around August, September. Their portals would open up. They would tell you what are the requirements for the year. You would consider whether or not you want to give GRE or TOEFLs for these colleges. Prepare a list so that you don't really waste your free GRE TOEFL slots and finish them off. At this point, you start writing your SOP, which is basically you telling your journey. It will take a good month to write a first draft and then about just as much time to get it reviewed by all of your professors, advisors, friends, seniors, peers, whatever you prefer. You'll edit all of that, you'll edit a personal statement, and by the time November knocks in, you should be ready with all of your materials, and you'll just be making some final tweaks for each university. And the typical deadlines for university applications are December 1st, December 15th, first week of January, and a couple of them will have their deadlines towards Feb and March, but most of them would be over by first week of Jan. You submit your applications, and by the end of January or the start of February, you can start expecting places to send you interview invites. Interview invites are not a standard procedure. It's kind of 50-50. Some of them do it, some of them don't. Yeah, through let's say the second or third week of Feb is when you can start expecting results of your PhD applications. And the typical deadline for you accepting or rejecting your result is mid-April. So 15th April was the deadline for, I guess, most of us, 15th, 17th April. And if you get your results in the second, one thing to consider in this timeline final caveat is don't be too disheartened if you are not getting your results early on. A lot of places keep releasing their results in waves. So they'll release like 70% of the results early on, wait for a few acceptances to come in, then release a second. So until you are like rejected from a place, you are still in the consideration, so don't get disheartened. And yeah, that should be a decent enough summary.
Pretty sufficient summary. Okay, do any of you want to add anything to that? Any differences you felt? Okay, then we'll move on. We'll take the questions at the end. Profile building. So let's say someone from second year, someone from first year is interested and intrigued by the process. What should they do in the build-up to their application, and like what should they explore? Okay, Rashi, I think, was interested in research quite far back. Like, we all heard stories about, like...
So no, I was interested in physics, but I wasn't sure if. But the thing, so for me, the problem was that actually I was also interested in other things, and I really wanted to, um, explore those other fields as well. So I actually decided that I want to go for masters. I mean, later on. But if you want to ask about an ideal timeline, then see, honestly speaking, the sooner you decide, the better, because that helps you get more project experience. Maybe you work under a professor for some time and you realize that this is not something that you want to pursue at all. And so I don't think, I mean, nobody expects you to start working on projects in your first year, obviously, but if you are interested in research and you can actually begin working in your second year, that will definitely be helpful. And so that's regarding projects. I will add that going for a research internship is also a very good idea because just because of the amount of exposure and clarity that you gain. And so one thing that I think a few other people also said was that it's a good idea to decide the universities that you'll be applying to in the summer, that's in your third year summer. And if you can also give your TOEFL and GRE in that summer, that is also a good idea, because frankly speaking, you will have more important things to do in your seventh semester when your applications are going to start in full swing. So that's there. For me personally, I wasn't able to do that because my research internship spanned my entire summer break, and it was quite intense. It was 6-7 days a week and 10-11 hours a day, so I did not have any space to do that, so I had to start a bit late. But if you can, I would definitely recommend you to in fact, if you're applying for research internships where you can actually request the professor that, okay, this is the time that I can be available for the internship, I would suggest you to keep a week or two before and after your internship, because that time can definitely help you get ahead in your application process.
That sort of covers it. Now, to important metrics. Okay, how much does CPI matter? How does the amount of project matter? And is it just the quality or the quantity? Any inputs in that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so CPI definitely matters. Like, there's no question about it. If you're going to physics, you fail quantum mechanics, that's a no-go. Or if you get a D there, it's again a no-go. You could have worked on topological materials, quantum Hall effect, fractional quantum Hall. No one cares, you got a D in quantum mechanics. Yeah, so CPI definitely matters. Projects and research are a bonus. They are a huge bonus, especially if you've worked in the field that you want to stick to, which is, I'm going to the point of consistency. This is a major misconception that you worked on something that is exactly what you're going to work on for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. No one expects consistency, and I think the point was raised earlier. All they're looking for from you having worked on these projects is that the investment that the professor and the university is going to put into you, especially for a PhD program, is going to pay off. You're not going to run off and say, I quit after 2 years. That's the major thing, that you having done projects or research and getting letters of recommendation from the professors who you worked with, they tell the university that your CPI tells them your foundation is solid. The research and projects that you did, it could be 1 in number, 2 in number. The letter, that's the thing. You only see the application that you submit. The letter of recommendations are an equally essential part of the thing. And that's the part that no one sees. So the project that you did, if your letter of recommendation says, oh, he was there with the PhD student, complete the whole time, he put in as much effort or you put in as much effort as the person who is leading the project, that's a basic, that's a green flag. That tells the committee that you're committed to what you take on. It could be a menial task, but that you commit to it. So that's one of the other things. So that's what projects or research is telling the committee. They're not telling the committee that, okay, they worked on primeval black holes, they're going to continue working on PBH or whatever. It could be whatever, but it tells the committee that you can commit to a project and commit to it wholly. So the CPI tells about your foundation. The projects or research tell the committee about your temperament. And both of these are important for the application. And that's how you should take it, that both of these are important. It's definitely not how many projects you did. You kept, in fact, if you do more projects, it could be even detrimental to the committee, because it might tell the committee that you're fickle-minded, that you keep jumping from one thing to the other, and you're not committing to one thing. So quality is definitely more important. And again, as I said earlier, undergrad research is a major bonus to your application, but keep in mind, and don't get disheartened if you don't have a paper, because the committee and the university knows that this is a bonus, especially coming from places which are not the US, where having big research labs is the norm, and having undergrad researchers is the norm. They know that international students, this is not the norm. So if you don't have it, don't get disheartened. Just stick to what you're good at. If you have a 10, no one's going to not give you a PhD admission. So first things first, make sure you're not doing research or projects at the cost of your CPI. Research and projects are an add-on to the CPI. That's the first thing. And about domain consistency, I've seen people who did political science. This is the other thing. Domain consistency is something that's very specific to India. Domains are very fluid when it comes to the rest of the world. I've seen people who've done political science who are then doing PhD in computer science. So it's all those things that we think of as a fundamental dogma to doing research, they don't exist in the outside world. All that they're looking for is that you're committed and that you will follow through with what you're applying for. So that's what I've seen outside, and if people want to disagree, contradict, agree, I'm fine with it. But that's my take.
Okay. To coming to profile building, I am personally very intrigued by your Manvi's master thesis, master program in robotics, and I think her whole undergraduate also was a build up to that. Like, you were in the robotics club and you did dedicate a lot of your time there. Do you think anything extra you did there helped your profile to stand out?
So yeah, I think your profile is majority of like CPI, but the other things like working in robotics club or being in a team or even sports or any other accessories, they just add variety. And I think more than the profile, they help shape your SOP. You can give it a good perspective, but like I think not more than that. And another thing is your program, the program that you're applying to, the more research oriented it gets, the more they focus on your academics. So you need to balance that out according to what kind of program you're applying to.
Oh, coming to pure mathematics, I got a personal request from a friend to involve Sahil in this. So you were you were interested in pure maths from very early on. Were there any specific things you did that were different that got you into this program? Like, do you think any particular thing had an extra impact on your application?
I think I took a lot of like graduate level courses. So, and to like those advanced courses, I first have to like take those their prerequisites, which takes a lot of planning to like in like what course am I going to take this semester? What if it doesn't get offered the next one? Yeah, I think that must have helped.
Right. So it's pretty straightforward, I guess. Okay, moving on to the next section. So SOP. SOP, I think, is one of the most important documents you require in your process. So, okay, I think we're all clear on what an SOP is and what it should convey, but still I would want, like, Rashi, if you could fill us on, like, just summarize what SOP is, what is expected from you in an SOP, how should you structure it, and everything.
Right. So first of all, I would say that there's no fixed template that you should follow for your statement of purpose, but there are some things, there are some do's and don'ts. So one thing is that, so first of all, when you're deciding your program, right, you will be looking at, so you look at the department, you look at the curriculum and the professors who you would be interested in working under. So those are things that you definitely want to include in your application, because in your statement of purpose, in your essays, because it shows why you would be a good fit for that department and that institute. And so also, so another thing is that it's very important to, so again, you mostly won't be doing the exact same research that you did in your undergrad when, you know, in your masters, or whether you go for a PhD, because people change their research interests quite often, and a lot of times it also depends on the availability of projects. So that's there, but at the same time you do want to have a coherent theme throughout your application. If it looks like you have done a lot of projects in, you know, wildly different domains, and then you say, oh, finally I want to do an MS in physics, it doesn't really make much sense, right? So I mean, I'm not asking you, I'm not saying that it's not a good idea to pursue extracurriculars. And I mean, speaking from my own experience, I'm very glad that I explored a few, you know, seemingly random things. I was briefly in motorsports, I explored a bit of data science and consulting, and my internship was actually going to be in finance. But ultimately, I decided that, you know, physics is what I want to pursue. So I would encourage, so especially if you're confused, I would encourage you to explore things, but at the same time know that when you're applying, you do have to have a coherent theme in your application. So your coursework and your projects should align with the degree that you want to pursue later on. So, so one thing is that you might be applying to different departments. So for example, I applied for MS in quantum technology, and sometimes the departments offering that would be the physics department, sometimes it was also the ECE department. So based on that, I decided to make my projects look a little bit more engineering oriented or more physics oriented. So that was there. And then specifically, so a lot of institutes have, you know, some, so maybe they have a specialization option, maybe they have, so every program will have, you know, some specific courses that you are really interested in pursuing. So, and that's going to differ program to program. So that's something that you want to change. You will obviously look at the professor's research, and that's, so what project would you want to pursue in that institute, in that program? That's another thing that you want to tailor. And if there are any academic initiatives that you would be interested in joining in your institute. So for example, I remember one of my application, one of the universities I applied to had a Center for Quantum Technologies, another had a quantum initiative, and so those are things that I also try to add in my application. More or less they remain the same. If you feel like you have options where, you know, you feel like you have four, you can get 4 strong LORs, and you want to just reduce, you know, risks related to your application, then you can say, okay, I can just, you know, request professors differently for different applications. But otherwise, I mean, it's also very difficult to have, you know, more than 3 LORs of equal quality. So that's there. Also regarding LORs, it's very important that your LORs are actually from your research or projects that you did. And if you feel like you don't have enough, I would recommend that you ask a professor with whom you did a course where there was a course project instead of just a normal course where there was no project component. So that's it.
Okay. So I think that covers the SOP part. Any further question we'll be willing to take outside after the session ends. We'll have to sort of rush it right now. Okay, then coming on to finding and shortlisting universities. So all of you must have applied to multiple universities. How did you go on and shortlist those universities? And then how did you find your particular programs of interest? What channels did you research them through? Anything on that? Okay, I think Shruti.
So I basically started with the QS rankings and general rankings online, and I made a list of 15, 20 universities, and I applied to say 11 of them, the top 11 of them. But then the next step after that was talking to people who are doing those programs or who have done those programs before. And this is one place where I feel like having an IIT tag really helped me, because a lot of people from all the different IITs had gone to the kind of places and the colleges that I was looking for. So I talked to at least a few people from each of those places to understand what the differences is. And the people who are already doing it would be able to tell you a lot of things that are not on the site. And they if the site says something about TA-ship or RA-ship or some funding opportunities, the site would say you can have it, but only the people there can tell you the reality of it. Sometimes, whether it's feasible to actually get such opportunities. So it's always good to talk to people who have gone there to get a different perspective, and that's what I did to finally make my preference order of universities.
Any questions on this particular topic? Any specific questions?
So obviously, I think somebody would give a better answer regarding a PhD application. But I would say even for masters, you don't want to. I mean, you might want to look at the QS rankings. I did that myself as well. But it's a good idea to also look at the department that you are going to be applying to, and is that department strong enough in that institute, right? So a lot of institutes are known for their medical program or for their MBA program. So, and they might not have a very strong program in STEM. And then there are some institutes which are known for very strong programs in, CSE or ECE, but might not have a good program in, say, maths or physics. So you definitely want to look at the program. And even while selecting your university and program, you definitely want to look at the professor's research, because you might like the university a lot. Even if they have a very good department, maybe the professors are not doing the research that you want to associate yourself with. So that definitely goes in.
Find safeties in two ways. One is the department having a large enough department size so that it just takes, let's say, 20 PhDs, and you know for a fact that your getting in chances are higher. Or let's say your advisors here who are writing your LORs know people there, they have been working with people there. Or in my case, I was working with a professor from Penn State, so I knew almost for a fact that if I apply there, I would have a very, very good chance of getting in. And that's what ended up happening. That was my first offer. So that is how you define safeties. Reaches are with someone with your profile, you look at how people kind of in the past who have had, let's say, one paper or have done certain CPI ranges or have done certain kind of coursework, have applied to these places and have kind of gotten in 10-20% of the time. So then that is a good reach. And high reaches are like dream schools, let's say Berkeley for stats, or Stanford I wouldn't even consider applying, but like just good places that you want to get to. And if you have a good season, you'll get one of the high reaches. Mostly you are in the targets and safeties. That's what your expectations can.
Right. So I think we should conclude in here, and we'll take the questions outside. I would want Varun to just summarize and give his whole remarks over the process and discussion if you want to.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I think we can conclude everything here. I'm just going to take 2 minutes. So one, before applying, make sure you know why you're applying. And once you know why you're applying, the other things kind of follow that thing. So in your 6th semester, take 1 day, 2 days to kind of existentially examine yourself and ask yourself what you want to do with life, at least for the next 5 years. And with that, take the next steps. If the answer is you do want to go for higher education, you want to apply for masters, you want to apply for PhDs, why you want to do either of them, the answers might be different, but given that you've decided it, then start deciding on which schools you want to apply. Look at what you want to apply to those schools. If you need the exams, if you don't need the exams, how many letter of recommendations do you need? What kind of SOPs do you need? Do you need a diversity statement? Do you not need a diversity statement? Start working on that in the 7th semester itself. Collect the people who will be writing your letter of recommendations, depending on which programs you would be applying to. Do not be afraid if you think your profile is not good enough. It probably is. And also, if you think you do not fit, you again probably do. So once you've decided everything, take the doubts out of your mind. Go ahead, full gusto with it. Tailor your SOP. One of the things that probably wasn't mentioned is do not try and tailor the SOP to what you think the department requires. Be truthful. That shows the most. If you're truthful to yourself why you want to do it, that would be apparent. If you try and tailor it, that would also be apparent. So just be truthful, write the first draft, give it to your roommate. If your roommate says that's shit, it is shit. So take as much feedback as you want from your roommate, wingies, someone in the canteen, doesn't matter. And do take the feedback seriously. By the sort of middle of the 7th semester, you should have the first portfolio of what you need to apply ready, and then just go and apply. So I think that would be it. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can conclude the session. If anyone wants to add any concluding remarks, you're invited to do that. If not, thanks a lot to all the panelists for coming up and sharing their insight. It was very valuable for me and all of us. Okay, so we'll wrap up here and we can leave the room and get our... you can connect with the speakers and ask your queries outside.